Yugi! I will not be defeated at my own tournament!
So let's talk about it. What if Kaiba did in fact win his own tournament? Kaiba defeating Yugi changes quite a bit. First, we have to rewrite the end of the duel, where the most seamless thing would be to give Kaiba a better card than Spell Absorption. I imagine Kaiba picked this card since he surmised Yugi had Magic Formula, but if his plan was to bring out Blue Eye's ultimate, he should have figured there's no spellcaster in Yugi's deck that will be able to top the ultimate dragon even with that 500 attack boost. As it turns out, even when Yugi uses it on his Dark Paladin, that still would have left it 100 attacks short of the ultimate dragon even without absorption. A better card would unequivocally have been Shrink, because it's effectively a counter to Magic Formula, and in game, if he had used it after using Diffusion on Kaiba's Blue Eyes ultimate, that would have reduced Dark Paladin from 4900 to 2450. Magic Formula would then bring it up to 2950, still 50 short of Blue Eyes, meaning even after Diffusion, the Paladin can't overcome. Which actually works out pretty swell. Kaiba edges out Yugi's ultimate swordsman by a mere 50 attack points. The Pharaoh congratulates him on a great duel and hands him Slifer. Kaiba responds with an I told you so, claiming that the winner was the better duelist and no power of unity could change that. The Pharaoh cautions Kaiba that he will need everyone's support to take down Marik, but Kaiba scoffs and walks away. Shortly after, Kaiba and Yami Marik take the duel stage for the championship round. With Yugi having to watch from the sidelines, everyone's faith is in the anti-hero to take down the big bad. Kaiba is well prepared for Raw, having found the perfect card to counter it in Fiend Sanctuary. During the duel, Odeon reappears, allowing regular Marik to take back control of his body, aligning the timing with Kaiba's winning move to win the tournament and stand atop the Duel Tower. He has officially conquered his past in Gozaburo and now stands as the undisputed Duel King. As his laugh permeates in the background, Marik apologizes to Yugi and company, then reveals the inscriptions on his back. The Pharaoh laments that he will need to acquire the Egyptian god card somehow, knowing full well that Kaiba won't just hand them over. The group heads out with the status of the Pharaoh's future hanging in limbo. With the manga, Millennium World immediately follows Battle City. Obviously, with Yugi no longer in possession of the Egyptian god cards, we need a net new arc. Anime-wise, there are two filler arcs between the two, one of which I believe can be retooled for our purposes so as to avoid having too much white space to cover for this exercise, and that is Waking the Dragons. In this what if, we're going off the anime continuity, meaning Pegasus is alive. For the manga, if we were to use Waking the Dragons as the framework, we'd simply need to replace Pegasus with someone else who could create the Legend of Heart card, perhaps his adopted son Yako if this takes place after Yu-Gi-Oh! R, but just for the sake of simplicity, I'm going with the anime timeline. So that is where we're picking up this hypothetical, but before we go any further, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Now let's roll. Kaiba is laughing atop the Duel Tower. The laugh continues to grow louder and louder until the person dreaming this scene finally wakes up. It's not Yugi, it's Mokuba. Every night since Kaiba's victory, Mokuba has had the same recurring nightmare of Kaiba throwing everything else in his life to the wind as he basks in the glory of his self-made victory. Mokuba thinks back to the moment Kaiba defeated Yugi and chastised him for needing the support of anyone else. At the time, he didn't think too much about it. After all, his brother surely wanted him by his side. But since then, Kaiba has completely ignored Mokuba as he sits on the throne of the world as the most powerful man alive. Remember, in the original, Kaiba doesn't fully accept the power of unity until Yugi top decks Fiend Sanctuary against Marik. Without that moment, and especially with Kaiba's worldview of Lone Wolf conquering Yugi's power of unity, Kaiba, in my opinion, will remain a power-hungry president of a major corporation. Not evil, no need to call Luigi, but also not having fully completed his character arc. Mokuba feels that promise his brother made to him as kids to build theme parks is completely out the window, unless he can do something about it. One night, after waking up from that same nightmare, he resolves to do just that. He finds Kaiba's deck and takes Obelisk, Slifer, and Ra. What now? He runs to the only person in his life who has shown him support, Yugi. In the dead of night against the backdrop of rain, he arrives at Grandpa's game shop. He knocks on the door and eventually Grandpa Moto answers and asks what he's doing here. Mokuba holds up the 3 Egyptian god cards and Grandpa is starstruck. Before he can invite Mokuba in, the lights from a trio of motorcycles blind them. Mokuba asks what do they want. "Those 3 cards in your bag will do." They mockingly thank Mokuba for taking the god cards out of the highly secure Kaiba Corporation.
"Those aren't yours to take."
"Look who's talking, but I'll tell you what.
What if we could promise you a way to get your brother to build those theme parks with you?
Mokuba suddenly lets his guard down. His anger has dissipated into a solemn hope.
You can do that?
Trust us. Before you know it, you'll be looping around a Slifer-shaped roller coaster. Grandpa urges Mokuba not to go, but the cyclist throws Mokuba a helmet and gestures to the sidecar of his bike. Mokuba gets it.
Yugi!
Grandpa starts to shout, but another one of the members ambushes him and puts his hand around Grandpa's mouth, taking him along with them. They race off into the night. The next morning, Domino City is under siege by what appears to be duel monsters. Kaiba Corp is slammed with a PR nightmare, but what puzzles Kaiba the most are the images of Slifer, Obelisk, and Ra running amok. He goes to the area of his headquarters where his deck is kept fully secure, and upon checking, loses his mind that the God cards have disappeared from his deck. Kaiba watches the security footage but finds it to be deleted. He then calls Yugi and accuses him of employing illusions to make his monsters look real, to make Kaiba's company look bad. He continues to blast Yugi, saying that while he can understand a sore loser's pathetic attempt at revenge, he didn't take Yugi for a thief who would snake the God cards that Kaiba rightfully won.
You're a disgrace to the game, Yugi!
Yugi insists to no avail that he had nothing to do with their theft. He informs Kaiba that his grandpa too has gone missing and wonders if the same people are behind both crimes. Kaiba thinks to himself that among all the chaos of the accusations against his company, he hasn't seen Mokuba at all today. At that moment, Kaiba receives an incoming call and tells Yugi he's not off the hook and abruptly hangs up. He answers, and on the other line is one of the voices of the motorcycle trio.
You've probably noticed by now your precious God cards are missing.
Who is this?
Scratch that. I don't need to know the identity of someone whose existence I'll crush if you don't return those cards back to me.
What's wrong, Kaiba? Afraid you can't win a duel without these cheat codes?
I could defeat you with a deck made by Joey Wheeler. Now give them back before I really get mad.
Gladly, but only if you win a duel. The mystery voice tells Kaiba to meet him at a discreet location on the outskirts of Domino City. When Kaiba arrives, the same trio of motorcyclists await him. Kaiba demands the God cards back, but the red-haired one reiterates that he'll have to duel for them.
So you're the rat who called me. Well, if it's a duel you want, you barked up the wrong tree, little dog.
Wow, a rat and a dog all in one line. Hope you duel better than you bark.
Before we start, tell me who you are and why you stole my cards.
The name's Alistair, and we didn't steal anything. But the one who did will be your opponent for this duel. The three members make way, and as the person behind them emerges, Kaiba is shocked.
Mokuba, what did you freaks do to him?
Mokuba smirks. He readies his duel disc and shouts,
Seto, if I win, you say goodbye to those God cards.
Mokuba, why are you doing this? What did those crooks do to you?
They didn't do anything. I'm in charge here, and it's time to duel.
That's what you want, little brother. Then so be it.
Seto jumps out to an early lead, though as they are dueling, he finds himself thinking that Mokuba is far more skilled than he would have suspected for someone who isn't a duelist, but he just chalks it up to Mokuba having watched him for so long. Then comes the fated turn.
I activate the Seal of Orichalcos.
What is that?
Mokuba explains that the seal will grant 500 attack to all his monsters. Kaiba demands to know where he got the card, but Mokuba says it doesn't matter because once he wins, Kaiba will lose his soul.
Oh, I see. More Millennium item garbage. So you three must be working with Yugi.
The biggest member speaks.
The Seal of Orichalcos is far more powerful than those silly trinkets. And after we finish with you, the Pharaoh's next.
Seto and Mokuba continue their duel, and thanks to the powers of the Orichalcos, Mokuba starts to claw his way back in the duel to the point where he, much to the shock of Seto, summons Obelisk the Tormentor. Seto didn't think his brother had it in him, but after all, he does share his blood. Despite staring down the God card, Kaiba is able to overcome by summoning Blue Eye's ultimate. He can win the duel with an attack, at which point Mokuba shouts back,
Go ahead and finish me. You obviously valued those God cards more than my soul.
A card can't take your soul, Mokuba. These thugs are just messing with your head, and when I win, that'll prove it.
Seto declares the attack and wipes out Mokuba's life points. In that instant, the seal collapses around Mokuba and he screams, Big Brother! As the seal strips him of his soul and his image appears on the card. At the sound of the scream, Seto thinks to himself, that didn't sound like a trick. Alistair approaches Mokuba's lifeless body and pulls out two cards from his duel disc, Obelisk and the Seal of Orichalcos.
Running away now that you see this Orichalcos nonsense is no match for me?
I'll deal with you soon enough. In the meantime, Enjoy this! He tosses the seal of Orichalcos card with Mokuba's picture on it to Seto and mocks that only a devil would sacrifice his own little brother. The gang drives off, leaving Seto alone in the rain with his brother. Seto approaches Mokuba's body and kneels down before him. He nudges him to wake up, but Mokuba is not breathing and has no pulse. Seto looks closely at the Orichalcos card and stares at the image of Mokuba on it. He recalls at Duelist Kingdom when Pegasus had done something similar and starts to shake.
Did I do this to my own brother?
He then notices a shining green stone around Mokuba's neck. He takes it and places it around his own neck as A reminder of his brother, and B, it may have something to do with this so-called seal of Orichalcos. Kaiba returns to his office and calls Yugi. He asks him if he has any knowledge of a shining green circle called the Seal of Orichalcos, perhaps something in relation to these occult items Yugi is always blabbing about. Yugi says he's never heard of it and asks back where he came across it. Kaiba explains what happened and Yugi asks back if his grandpa was with them, to which Kaiba says no. Yugi suggests they work together to look into this gang, but Kaiba says he'll fix them by himself and hangs up. As Yugi heads out to search for his grandfather again, he receives a call from Professor Hawkins, who is looking for Solomon. Yugi says something may have happened to his grandpa, so the professor passes his message on to Yugi instead. He tells him of his findings in the underwater ruins off the Atlantic, how the carvings there resemble duel monsters, and how a giant one had destroyed the entire civilization. Yugi is shocked to learn of this, but asks how he and his grandpa can help. Professor Hawkins says he found a tiny green stone in the ruins which started lighting up last night and wanted to check if Solomon had any idea what it might be about. Yugi thinks back to his conversation with Kaiba about the shining green circle and thinks that can't be a coincidence. He informs the professor about what Kaiba said, and the professor says he will continue to look into it. From here, things will follow the events from the Orichalcos arc, just in a different order. In the original, Yugi gets the Eye of Timaeus, and then the next day gets the videotape from Pegasus, but I'm flipping it around since in this version, it all happens in one day. At Pegasus' request, Yugi decides to go to America to Industrial Illusions, and on the flight there is when he and the Pharaoh venture into the world of duel monsters and unleash Timaeus. Yugi awakes on the plane with the Eye of Timaeus card in his hand. With the so-called real duel monsters incident, as well as Mokuba being trapped in the card, Kaiba figures it's worth a visit to Pegasus to sort things out. But as he's aboard Kaiba craft to the island, he learns that the craft has been hijacked by Alistair, who challenges him to a duel. In this version of events, this will be the only duel between Kaiba and Alistair, and so Kaiba will get Critias in this duel. But otherwise, the duel will go the same as their second duel. So it is in this duel that Alistair will reveal his motivations for coming after Kaiba, that it is Kaiba Corp's fault for creating the war machines that took his brother's life and destroyed his village. In this version, Alistair will specifically call out Kaiba. You don't know what it means to be a brother. After all, you're the reason Mokuba lost his soul. This will be a moment of reckoning for Kaiba, who thinks back to what Mokuba had said to him during their duel, that the God cards mattered more to him than his own brother. Kaiba vows to himself that he will rescue his brother and put an end to this madness, and it is in that moment that Dark Magician Girl will take him to the world of duel monsters and have him unleash Critias. Staring down Air Fortress Ziggurat and the Seal of Orichalcos, Kaiba uses Critias to combine with Tyrant Wing, then go into Blue Eyes Tyrant Dragon for the win. Kaiba then rushes to the cockpit and tries to steer the aircraft before it crashes, and is assisted by Critias supporting the bottom of the plane to help it land smoothly. When Kaiba exits the aircraft, he is met by none other than Darts, who introduces himself as the leader of Doma and the wielder of the Orichalcos. Kaiba demands he return Mokuba's soul and the Egyptian god cards. Darts says he's impressed by Kaiba and didn't think he had it in him to call forth Critias, but that Kaiba also has great anger within him, pointing out that the green stone around his neck is shining as Kaiba yells at Darts. Kaiba insists on a duel, but Darts suggests a compromise. He will return Mokuba and the god cards, but Kaiba must do him a favor first. Kaiba is not one to be strong-armed, but with Mokuba's life on the line, he at least agrees to hear Darts out. The scene comes back to Yugi and crew who have arrived at Industrial Illusion headquarters. From here, the sequence of events will mostly follow the anime version. I'll go over them quickly for folks who aren't familiar with the arc or just need a refresher, and also point out some small changes given the preceding events. First, Joey duels Mai, who reveals she has taken on the power of the Orichalcos. Joey unleashes Hermos during this duel to save Mai from defeat. Valen breaks the seal. The friends find the restricted room and within there find the blank card that Pegasus has created as a counter to Doma's plans. Raphael leads Yugi away from the group by telling him he has his grandpa. The change here is that instead of having kidnapped Professor Hawkins, it's Grandpa Moto. The duel between Raphael and the Pharaoh goes the same way, only there is a bigger emphasis on the Pharaoh's psyche to win at all costs because he's just coming off a loss to Kaiba, which completely ruined his chances to retrieve his lost memories. That, and in this case, Raphael has not yet released Grandpa just yet, so there's a tangible thing to be gained by winning this duel. Thus, the Pharaoh activates the Seal of Orichalcos, goes berserk with sacrificing his monsters, but Raphael still wins. Yugi steps in to have his soul taken, unbeknownst to Raphael, who, under the impression that he's got the Pharaoh, leaves with Valen flying the helicopter and reveals that Grandpa is tied down in a cave near them. Tristan and Duke find Grandpa. The Pharaoh reveals that it was Yugi who lost his soul. Grandpa chastises him for playing the Seal of Orichalcos and betraying his grandson, lamenting that he should never have given Yugi the Millennium Puzzle. On their way back home, they take the train and the Pharaoh, Taya, and Grandpa get separated from Joey and Tristan. Joey defeats Rex, the Pharaoh defeats Weevil. The Pharaoh then has his own reckoning by having to duel Yugi in the Valley of Lost Souls. Upon his victory, Grandpa is at least now on talking terms with the Pharaoh, but still very much upset. Joey faces off versus Valen, then duels Mai and collapses toward the end, ceding the duel and his soul. That allows Mai to come to her senses and go to darts, but Raphael intercepts her and defeats her for her soul. The Pharaoh and company come across Joey's lifeless body, then head toward Doma where Raphael meets them. He hands the Pharaoh the Claw of Hermos and reveals what happened. The two duel and the Pharaoh, able to use the legendary dragons again, defeats Raphael and frees him from his inner darkness, saving him from the seal. Raphael tells him about darts and where to find him. At this point, Grandpa finally does forgive the Pharaoh and says he believes Yugi can indeed be saved. They just need to stop darts. The Pharaoh and crew head toward Darts' temple, but when they get there, they run into Seto freaking Kaiba. The Pharaoh immediately notices the Orichalcos stone around Kaiba's neck and asks if he's working for darts. Kaiba dismisses this with a laugh that the most powerful man in the world bows to nobody.
Yugi, the only way this madman will release Mokuba is if I defeat you in a duel.
Kaiba, we should be working together to stop darts. Don't you see what he's doing?
The only thing I see is that you're afraid of losing to me again. I hear you were on something of a losing streak. I guess that's what happens when you lose to me. You start to question everything.
This is bigger than that, Kaiba. Darts will destroy the world if we don't do everything in our power to stop him.
I have no intention of letting him get away with anything. The moment I defeat you, I'll defeat him, and all of this will be over.
Kaiba readies his duel disc. The Pharaoh begrudgingly readies his, and the two begin their duel. Kaiba by his third turn summons a monster that comes to everyone's surprise, Slifer, the Sky Dragon. The Pharaoh, however, counters with Eye of Timaeus on Dark Magician Girl to bring out Dark Magician Girl, the Dragon Knight. Slifer's second mouth weakens it by 2,000 points down to 600, but to Kaiba's shock, the Dragon Knight's effect to destroy a monster at battles before damage calculation works on Slifer.
I see. So the legendary dragons are on level with the Egyptian god cards. Maybe this will be interesting.
Kaiba counters back with the Winged Dragon of Ra, which incinerates the dragon, but the Pharaoh counters with his second legendary dragon. He uses Claw of Hermos with Queen's Knight to make Goddess Bow, then equips it to Dark Magician to double its attack and take down Ra. Kaiba draws and activates Pot of Greed, then smiles.
Yugi, you're not the only one who has one.
The only one who has what?
Kaiba reveals one of the cards he just drew.
A legendary dragon!
It's Fang of Critias. He uses it in combination with Crush Card to bring out Doomvirus Dragon, destroying Dark Magician. With the Pharaoh down to 2,000 life points, Kaiba activates the Seal of Orichalcos, thinking that with that 500 attack boost, it will put Doomvirus Dragon at the exact 2,000 he needs to attack for game.
I win again, Yugi.
I wouldn't be so sure about that, Kaiba. Take a look at your dragon.
Just like when the Pharaoh played the seal on top of Timaeus, which caused it to vanish, Kaiba's seal causes Doomvirus Dragon to vanish. Kaiba clenches his fist and curses Darts.
Don't you see what's happening, Kaiba? Darts is having us do his dirty work for him. Now whoever loses will lose their soul, and he will be one step closer to his goals.
The only person losing this duel is you.
Kaiba then goes into a combo that allows him to summon Obelisk the Tormentor and attacks, thinking he has game, but the Pharaoh discards Karibo to absorb the damage.
Draw your last pathetic card so I can end this, Yugi.
My deck may have pathetic cards, but yours doesn't.
Wait, that's not the line.
I activate Spiderweb. This allows me to use one card in your graveyard that was sent there the previous turn.
Kaiba's eyes widen.
Not that!
Exactly that. Come forth, Fang of Critias!
Critias appears and the Pharaoh fuses it with Mirror Force to create Mirror Force Dragon. He then activates Necromancy to special summon 4 random monsters from Kaiba's grave: Blade Knight, Kaiser Seahorse, X-Head Cannon, and Pitch Dark Dragon. Each monster gains 500 attack thanks to the seal, and Blade Knight gains 400 more by its effect since Kaiba has no cards in hand. Kaiba reminds the Pharaoh that thanks to the seal he can only attack Obelisk, but the Pharaoh says that's exactly his intention. But before he declares the attack, he thinks to himself that if he does defeat Kaiba, Kaiba will lose his soul to the seal. The moment atop Pegasus' castle flashes in his mind as he debates within himself, what would Yugi do? he ultimately decides.
Go, my dragon! Attack Obelisk!
Well, at least you're going out swinging. Obelisk is stronger than your monster. I win.
Look again, Kaiba.
Mirror Force Dragon's effect activates, and Kaiba takes damage for each monster he controls weaker than Mirror Force Dragon, equal to its 2800 attack, minus the weaker monster's attack. That's 300 for Blade Knight, 600 for Seahorse, 500 for X-Head Cannon, and 1400 for Pitch Dark Dragon. Then each of those 4 monsters are destroyed, and because of Necromancy's effect, for each one destroyed, Obelisk loses 600 attack, reducing it down to 2100. Mirror Force Dragon finishes its attack, inflicting 700 in damage and wiping out the rest of Kaiba's life points. The seal of Orichalcos constricts around Kaiba as the Pharaoh runs to him.
Yugi, save Mokuba.
Kaiba collapses, his body lifeless. Darts enters the room slowly applauding.
I sincerely thank you, Pharaoh. Now with Kaiba out of the way, I just need your soul and my plan will be complete. I won't forgive you for this, Darts. I will avenge every soul you've taken, from Joey to Mai to the Kaiba brothers. It's just as well. Kaiba never had a soul anyway. You're wrong. Everything he did was for his brother. Only someone with a heart would act so valiantly. Which is more than I can say about you. Is the one who lost Yugi's soul going to lecture me? Or shall we commence?
Darts readies his duel disc, and the Pharaoh readies his. The two begin their duel. This duel has 2 specific changes. First, that there's no Dragon Master Knight, and second, the Pharaoh will have to find it within himself to destroy the Mirror Knights. The way this works out is when Darts does call them forth, the one that was Mai is Kaiba instead, and it is Kaiba's voice that convinces the Pharaoh to go through with destroying them. From there, the duel plays out the same, with the Pharaoh having used the 3 legendary dragons, top decks into Legend of Heart to unleash their human forms to dismantle the seal and destroy Shuneros. Darts counters with the infinite attack Divine Serpent Geh, but the Pharaoh concocts his greater than infinity combo and merges the knights into legendary Knight Timaeus to go for the win. As in the original, Darts then sacrifices himself to resurrect the Great Leviathan, and the 3 chosen duelists fight back. Despite their best efforts, the Leviathan overpowers them and traps them inside itself. On the verge of defeat, everyone's hope in the Pharaoh empowers him to unleash the Egyptian gods and defeat the Leviathan once and for all. The gang escapes aboard Kaiba's aircraft without Yugi, trusting that he had to have made it out. Sure enough, they find him on the beach where their friends celebrate. Kaiba then approaches him. The Pharaoh tries to hand the 3 Egyptian god cards back to Kaiba, but Kaiba reflects on his duel versus the Pharaoh, and then just prior when the Pharaoh called forth the 3 god cards to defeat the Leviathan.
You defeated me, and they chose you.
Are you sure?
Kaiba looks at Mokuba, then back toward the god cards, then smiles. He walks back toward Mokuba. Yugi losing to Kaiba in the semifinals comes with some of the biggest implications for a what-if that doesn't involve the end of the world. It's a huge wrench in the quest to unlock the Pharaoh's memories, another wrench in Kaiba's character growth, and brings Kaiba back as an antagonist the Pharaoh must eventually overcome to get the plot back on track. But what say you? Would this change have been a net positive or negative for this series? And subscribe to this channel for more what-ifs. If you like what-ifs related to Waking the Dragons, then check out this video of what if the Orichalcos took the Pharaoh instead of Yugi. Or if you're into Battle City what-ifs, then what if Ishizu defeated Kaiba? And be sure to like, comment on, and share each of these videos, and I will catch y'all later.